Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello everybody, Bob Lusk. It must be 6:30 on a Tuesday night. Right here in this setting, this set that Debbie built. I don't know if you know the history of this deal, but probably 10 years ago, she was watching Last Man Standing. The Tim Allen show where he managed a store kind of like Bass Pro Shops in Denver, Colorado. And at the end of every show, he does a little video blog. And she was watching that video blog and she said, "You know what? You need to do that." And I said, "No, I don't think so." For 2 years, she pestered me. I see we have one viewer. Hello, Jim Allen. I should have known that was you, dude. Hey, let's go hang out. I was talking to Bobby West about our invention today, and he's pretty fired up to meet you. So I can't wait to hang out with you this weekend at the Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology. Water. So I haven't really decided on a topic, so you guys are going to help me with that. I think I'm just going to tell you more about what's been going on. I don't know what that is. So let's talk about some ponds and lakes and fish and stuff. You know, Jim Allen lives in LaGrange, Kentucky, not far from Louisville. Hello, John Harson. I don't know why you're not going to join us this weekend. I kind of do. You have a life. But the Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology is coming up this weekend, and we've been prepping for it. And we got 7 folks coming, and we're going to have a great big time. Hello, Danny Mac. You know what? You've already been to one. You know what it's like. You know how much fun it is. Well, now we're going to hang out at West Haven Ranch, Bobby and Jacob West's ranch, north of St. Joe. Beautiful property. They've got their family lodge, 3 cabins, 15-acre lake, cool boathouse. We're going to bring the electrofishing boat, and we're going to have great fun. John Harson, LaGrange is very close. Looks like you and Jim Allen need to become buddies. So you guys hit me with a few topics. I've got one right here in front of me. Look at this. See that picture? Oh, there's a story here. So let me tell you about that. There's going to be an article in the next issue of Pond Boss. Man, I'm looking at my nose. It's shiny. I don't know what's up. And, probably back in 2007 or 8, I got a phone call from a regular client who lives in Odessa, Midland, Odessa. And, yeah, John, message Jim Allen. You guys can connect up. If y'all like each other, then you hang out. If you don't ever talk again. But you guys have a lot in common. So anyway, I got this call from Larry Hensley, a customer, client, and a friend who lives in Odessa, Texas. And he's got about a 30-acre lake near Brownwood, Texas, not far from Lake Brownwood. Well, I'd kind of coached him over the years. He'd been working with Harold Arms some, and he wasn't kind of getting where he wanted to go. And I see if I could coach him up a little bit, which I did. And he followed the instructions pretty well. Started feeding his fish, culling, adding bluegills, making sure the water's fertile, keeping the milfoil under control, and started growing some really big fish. Well, one day he calls me, he says, "Man, I caught a bass that looks really, really bad. Bob, I'm broke. You need to listen to Dave Ramsey." But you know that. Here's water. So anyway, he told me that he caught this bass that was really skinny. So his question was, I don't think I've got enough food to feed the fish. So I said, well, next time you catch one, take a picture of it, hang on to it, call me, send me the picture, and let's talk about it. Shoot, it wasn't 2 weeks later, he calls me, he says, "Man, I caught another one of these bass." Harson, it don't cost a lot to pay attention. That's why you're here. You're paying attention now. Hello, Michael Ehrig from Iowa. Good to see you. Good to see you, buddy. So anyway, he sends me this picture of that bass. I thought, boy, there's something ain't right here. And his lake wasn't old enough to have bass that had become geriatric. So I said, okay, what'd you do with it? He said, well, I threw it back. I said, if you catch another one, Uncle Milton, I kind of forgot about that. So I said, next time you catch one, call me. Shoot, it wasn't 2 weeks later, he calls me. And he says, I've caught a fish. He sent me a picture. I said, dude, put it in the refrigerator overnight. Go to Allsup's or somewhere, get a styrofoam cooler, put some ice on it or one of those freezer things, and get it to me overnight. FedEx it to me. Well, shoot, the next day I got it. Hello, Kenny Sanderson. Good to see you, buddy. All the way from Kansas, northwestern Kansas. So anyway, he sends me this. Kenny, here's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this bass right here. So he sends me that bass. And as Fade had it, I was hanging out with Dan Hoy, who is in charge of all facilities for Bass Pro Shops. Now, I've known Dan, gosh, probably for 30 years now. And he's in charge of all the aquariums. He's in charge of all the light bulbs. Anything facilities, he's in charge of. At that time, 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, whenever this happened, he was more dialed into the aquaria and acquiring fish and all that. So he was at my house. We were having a little conversational conference, and I got that fish in. I said, hey, Dan, let's see what's going on with this fish. So I cut it open, and I was stunned. There were 5 soft plastic baits in the gut of that. Ooh, Lord. I don't have a cough button on this radio station. Had to sneeze. My apologies. Hope I didn't blow your ears out. So, man, perfect timing. So, when we cut that fish open and cut the gut open, those 5 soft plastics fell out. One of them was lodged. When you look at that picture again, see the lizard, this kind of fourth one to the left? Man, I don't know what's the deal on that. The head of that lizard was stuck at the back of the stomach, right where the intestines join. So what was going on? Oh man, I must be sleepy. Thanks, John. Bless me. Cough syrup. She's not looking. Don't tell her. You guys love me. I know I could tell. I don't know if that made me sneeze. And that one lizard's head was stuck right where the intestines at the back of the stomach. So what was going on with that fish? It couldn't digest any food. And when Larry caught it, it was hungry, but it couldn't digest its food. So it looked to me like it would eat, couldn't digest it, would upchuck it, and then continue to eat, but it was metabolizing its own flesh. So the moral of that story is, and I asked Larry, when you finish with a plastic bait, what do you do with it? Well, I throw it in the lake. Well, there's your consequences. Here's your sign. Which comedian said that? One of those, one of the top 5 guys that hung out with Jeff Foxworthy. So anyway, nice concert. Woodford. Water. Woodford. Jim Allen knows exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway, the bottom line was where he was assuming that his fish were losing weight because they didn't have any food or didn't have enough food. Bill Engvall, that's it. Gosh dang. Harson, I don't know why you're poor. You're so damn smart. You know all this stuff. You got all the answers. Bill Engvall. Yep. He's the guy that said, hey, when you get a flat, it's only flat on one side. Air it up, Here's your sign. Here's my sign. So, anyway, he didn't need any more bait fish. He just needed to stop throwing his soft plastics overboard. And he said that was a regular habit that he did all the time. So just that little exercise there. And something else that was happening when Dan Hoy was with me and we looked at that and we analyzed that fish and looked at it and found out what the real deal was he said, man, I want those pictures. And he put those on the Bass Pro website after I wrote an article for Pond Boss back then, 2000, whatever it was. Then that kind of helps prove the point about throwing stuff over. Okay, Chris Higgins, I've caught them and found the very worm I was using in its stomach. In my, yeah, okay, so there you go. Deborah Corlew. Hey, Deborah. Glad you're around. Hello, Doug Cusick. The Big Deck skit with them and Larry the Cable Guy was crazy funny. I'll have to look that one up. I don't know if I remember it. Let's see what Deborah's got. After putting rotenone in our pond last September, we've restocked with bluegill, red ear, and pumpkin seed. We've had great growth feeding them all summer. Recently, after talking to our biologists, we found we have some green sunfish and red ear hybrids. Been trying to catch as many as we can to weed them out. How did this happen? It's the only way to get them out. Well, here's the deal. Even with rotenone, Deborah, even if you kill every fish in there, that doesn't mean you killed every fish in the watershed. So most watersheds that still have water, ponds, streams, whatever, have a few fish. And I'm going to tell you this. If you've got some green sunfish, red ear hybrids, that's not necessarily bad. They're not going to inhibit the reproduction of your bluegills. It's not going to alter your food chain. It's not going to change the way you manage the lake. It's going to give you, the way I perceive it, it's going to give you a value-added fish that you might as well enjoy. If you want to catch them and take them out, sure, why not? Odds are high that that's going to be the best way to get them out. You know, you can also trap them if you want to, but, you know, I don't think there's going to be so many that it disrupts your food chain. It's just, you know, when you stocked it right with the different species, the bluegill, the red ear, and the pumpkin seeds, I see the hybrids between green sunfish and the red ear as an anomaly. I don't see it as influential. I don't see those fish as something that's going to disrupt what you're doing. I don't see it like that at all. I see those as value-added fish that you should enjoy and just have fun with them. So, I'm going to scroll down here. Let me see what's going on. Are you very familiar with the speckled belly hybrid red ear hatchery out of Arkansas? Patented them, I believe. Yeah, they did patent those. So that's Bobby Glennon with Malone and Sons. And Malone and Sons is, so Lone Oak, Arkansas is pretty much Mecca in the fisheries business of fish farms. And okay, so I'm gonna take you guys back a little bit. I started in January of 1980. That was the year that the state of Texas stopped giving away free fish to stock ponds and lakes. I had no idea what I was going to do for a living. Got out of college in December 17th, 1979. Leased a fish farm in Wichita County, Texas, starting January the 1st, 1980. 1980, for those of you that are old as I am, you'll reflect back and see that interest rates back then were 18 to 20%. It was ridiculous. Shut up, John. Hello, Chuck. You making fun of me, dog? Okay, I could take it. I could take it. So anyway, interest rates were like, I was paying 2 over prime. Prime was 18 to 20%. That was the hottest summer on record. I was trying to grow fish in hot tub water. We had ponds that were 104 degrees. We had 90 straight days where the temperature was over 100. It did not get below 88 degrees at night. It was ridiculously tough. And Jim Allen had an 18. You know, okay, so Jim knows what I'm talking about. John Harson he's just a puppy. 6 in 1980, born in 19. I've got a son born in 1973, dude. I got a son older than you. Play that game. Hello, Chuck Angeloni. So anyway, back then, I could buy largemouth bass from Hartley Fish Farms in Kingman, Kansas. They also had bluegill. I could buy channel catfish in Lone Oak, fathead minnows in Lone Oak. I could buy Florida bass in Florida, along with copper-nosed bluegill in Florida, from Florida Fish Farms, Ron Slay and his dad back then. Well, as time went by, 5 or 6 years down the road, some of the hatcheries in Lone Oak began to look at trying to grow some sport fish. So Leon Hill's catfish farm, Leon Hill had a north farm and a south farm. And he had a hatchery manager on the north farm and one on the south farm. He had, Mark Stevens and Bob Hopper. That was his two managers. So when he decided to sell his farm, he brought those two guys in, and they decided to buy the farms from him. They formed a partnership. They flipped a coin. Bob Hopper won. It was Hopper Stevens. So there were a number of us back then, and this was in the mid-'80s, 85, 86, 87, that started saying, hey, there's a demand for sport fish. So they started raising some bluegills and some red ear sunfish and some crappie, as well as channel catfish and fathead minnows. And then before long, they started raising a few bass. So that's when the sport fish industry began to blossom, and Lone Oak kind of became Mecca. Doug Cusick graduated in 1976. Well, you know what? I'm 3 years older than you, so Doug, you should remember this. Woodford, cheers. Jim Allen, I love this setup. How can I get the crab leg smell from dinner out of the house before my wife gets home from book club? We're going to be hanging out this weekend, and I know we're going to talk about this. Where you been rubbing those crabs? I didn't really mean to say that. We should be talking about ponds and lakes. Let's see. How do you get the crab leg smell from dinner out of the house? You have any air freshener? Open the windows. I tell you what, it's deflected to me. Tell her I was there. Oh, you guys are killing me. Oh, going back to Michael Harry's question, the speckled belly hybrid red ear. So Bobby Glennon that guy is a scientist. He's always messing with something, and I've had a couple of my writers want to write about the speckled belly hybrid red ear, but Bobby doesn't want to write about it. So we're not going to put that in Pond Boss until they kind of get the kinks ironed out. Which I really don't know what the kinks are. I need to call Bobby. I'll call Bobby Glennon in the next few days, and we'll talk about that. Our pond is fed by aquifers under the pond, says Deborah Corlew. We have no creeks or surface water feeding our pond. Our biologist had told us the green sunfish can be over-invasive and overpopulated pond, and adults take out as many as possible. We fished 1 hour one night and caught 51 green sunfish raiders. Well, I'm going to tell you my take on that. I'm looking at Danny Mack's answer. It's called 420 on Amazon. It smells like baby powder, overwhelming, but then explain that. If you can get that before she gets home from book club, that's going to be my advice. Follow Danny Mack's advice. Okay, Deborah, let's tackle this. Our biologist told us that green sunfish can be invasive. They're not going to be invasive. If you renovated the pond, rubbed on it, took all the fish out, and then reset it, and you've got some natural reproduction between red ear and green sunfish, they're not going to become invasive. Now, here's the way to see that. Bluegill are going to spawn 2 or 3, maybe 4 times a year where you live. Green sunfish are going to spawn once. And if they reproduce with the red ear, then they're hybrids. those hybrids are not going to reproduce. And even if they could, they're not going to throw very many babies. So simply by attrition, the largemouth bass are going to overwhelm those fish over a span of 2 or 3 years. So your biologist concept has got some merit, but the reality is that it won't be that way. Because of what you've done, you created the best habitat, the best environment, you're feeding, which I presume you are. Then before long, it won't take long, and the largemouth bass are going to be hammering all those baby bait fish. So as they do that, just strictly by attrition, the bluegill have absolutely got the advantage. They're going to be the fish that are going to be the ones that can overwhelm the whole situation. So don't worry about it. If you fished an hour and you caught 51 of them, what else did you catch? Did you catch any other fish? Because what typically happens is you get those hybrids, they're real aggressive, they grow fast, and then they kind of blow out. And the other fish are the mules. They're pulling the plow every day, and they're going to catch up with them. So I don't disagree with your biologist, but I disagree with your biologist. My experience suggests it's not going to be an issue. So Doug also grew up with a pond in his backyard, and he was in Explorer Scout Bass Club out of high school. That's pretty cool. Jeremy Day, what's up, Bob? Good evening. So I have a few crappie in my pond I didn't know about. What's the best way to get them out? Well, the best way to bait for crappie is to let some bluegill come in the trap and leave them in there. Because, in your 9 or 10 acre lake down there near Navasota, America, if you've got a few bait fish in the trap, that's what's going to lure. That's what's going to lure them in. Jim Allen put some old socks in the microwave. Make sure they're wet. If you'll wet those socks and microwave them, I did that, and let me tell you what's going to happen. They're going to catch on fire and mess up your microwave. Then you know what? That's going to deflect. You won't have to worry about trying to explain the crab leg smell when your microwave caught on fire. Oh my gosh, we're going to have so much fun this evening, and next weekend. Okay. I would bait for crappie with small bait fish. Jeremy, that's what's going to happen. The reason those crappie are coming into that trap is because you've got some young bluegill or some young bullheads, which your lake has, bullheads. They will come into that trap, and that will attract those crappie. Those crappie are going to come in there looking for a free meal. Okay, Kentucky is still working on managing algae blooms from satellite cameras. I've asked for more info in case it makes a good article. Yeah, I kind of like that idea. I've never managed algae blooms with the camera. I've always used algaecides or green clean or fertility or I've never used satellites to manage algae. Guys, hey, Pond Boss Magazine, $35 a year. Cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. Full of nuggets. There's all kinds of nuggets. Pearls, all kinds of wisdom in this thing. Texas Hunter Products. I got to hang out with Chris Blood and Cody Borgfield this last, I guess a week ago or so. They came to my Hall of Fame induction ceremony, which was really a lot of fun. And I got to see those guys. Texas Hunter, one of the things I love about Texas Hunter, and not only do they have great products, they've got outstanding customer service. And those of you that watch this show pretty regularly know what a big fan I am of Texas Hunter. They want to please their customers. That's, to me, if I'm a consultant, which I am, and I sell a feeder to somebody, which I do, and something happens, which happens occasionally, then I want that vendor to pay attention to my customers. And they do. They're really good about that. I got to hang out with Wayne Lancaster and Josie. For those of you that watch this so regularly, Wayne and Josie used to watch this show when Wayne was working full time. He might be in New Jersey working on a project up there, and Josie would be in Round Rock, and they would spend their Wednesdays, which was when I did my show, watching the show for their Wednesday night date. So they'd have something in common to talk about, which I still roll my eyes at that, like, how'd that happen? Well, Wayne bought a Texas Hunter feeder, put it on his pond, and then they had like a 500-year flood. So his feeder was submerged under the water, and he was just blown away, decimated. They had a warehouse, a little shop that they have on their property. They built in the house, and water flowed through it, damaged a bunch of their furniture, flooded the lake. The feeder was submerged. So he was just blown away by the damage of that flood. So I'm talking to Josie one day, and she said, man, that feeder was underwater. I can't believe it. I bought him that feeder. I said, you know what? When the water goes down, which it had by then, I said, you guys empty all the spoiled feed out of it and see if it still works. If it doesn't, they'll be good. They'll take care of you, I promise. And so I called Texas Hunter, and I talked to Cody. So he says, absolutely. If that feeder, if the timer's shot, we'll get him another feeder, no charge. I mean, another timer. Well, shoot, it wasn't a week later, and Josie calls me, and the feeder was working perfectly, even though it was completely submerged. So they were going to stand behind it, but the product was so good that it stood on its own merit. I got to hang out at my Hall of Fame induction with David Nelson, Kurt Schultz, several guys with Purina Mills that I've been able to work with to help them develop better fish foods. Those guys are amazing, and they believe in us. They believe in me. They believe in you. Now, of course, Kenny Sanderson, sitting there watching the show, he knows what a pain in the ass distribution can be for Purina, but we can't debate the quality of their products. They're really good. David Schneiderman, Easy Docks of Texas. You know, they're expensive as hell, but you get value for what you spend. So there's some plugs, birddogit.com. Go check that out. My son, Jonathan, I'm amazed at that young man. Jonathan is early 40s. He is a go-getter. He credits me for that, but I'm not taking credit because he's his own guy. He came up with an idea about 4 years ago, and he said, you know, Dad, I'm in my late 30s. I'd love to take my kids hunting. I don't want to lease. I don't want to deal with an outfitter where we got to plan it, you know, a year or two out. I don't have any friends that own ranches. But if I wanted to take my son hunting, there's no vehicle for that. Well, he's built it. So you guys go to birddogit.com and you'll see. He's created a business model that's kind of like VRBO or Airbnb for hunting. So if you guys wanted to go hunting for hogs from a helicopter, you can do that. You know, where in like today's world in Texas, if you want a hunting lease, well, you got to set up a camp, set up feeders, set up blinds. You have to take responsibility for fences. So if the cows knock a fence down and the cow gets hit by a truck, that landowner wants you to be liable for that. No, doesn't work that way. Or you can work with an outfitter and kind of have everything planned out in advance, you know, where Jonathan curates all these things, and it's a pretty good deal. So there's my commercials, and it's $6.59. So you guys need to hit me with some questions because I didn't really think about this a lot. I have been totally dialed in on Harrison, you're killing me, dude. History tidbit. I got it. I got this. I've totally got this. Jim Allen, forgive me for this answer. History tidbit. Did you know a Kentuckian invented the toothbrush? No, but I know this. If it would have been somebody else, it would have been a teeth brush. I'm going to scroll down and see what you said. That was a great night in Athens. It really was. Chris Blood, I'm so glad you're on. Chris, man, I love you. I'm so glad Mary was there, and and so was Cody. And both of you guys married way outside your coverage. That's so cool. And that was so much fun. Wichita hit 88 again today and beat our previous record of 87 set last year. Had 6/10 of rain last evening. Well, okay, you got some rain. We didn't. And Adam George, 1-year-old Missouri pond, is northern crawdads burrowing in the dam. I wouldn't try to remove them, but what I would do is make sure you have enough bass to eat them. Okay, let's see here. Hey, Bob. Peyton Igo from Shreveport, Louisiana. One of our clients had a Texas underfeeder caught up in a fire, melted the sight glass, charged a lot of stuff, put a new battery timer in it, and went right back. I totally believe that. And if you will call them, Peyton, or email them, Chris Blood, hey, Peyton, message Chris Blood. He'll tell you what to do. If the sight glass, they'll replace that. So Jim Allen is talking with Adam. There you go. Ron Ardoin. Hey, Ron's going to show up. Guess what's going to happen? Hey, Jim, guess what's going to happen this weekend? Ron is going to show up Thursday about noon, and he is making gumbo. It'll have a little bite to it, and I know you're not much on spicy foods, but maybe we can get him to tone it down a little bit. Okay, so Adam, how do I remove these large? You know what? You can actually trap crawfish, but if you got bass, they'll eat them. There you go. There we go, John. 1 minute ago. I beat you to it. It's a Tennessee joke, says the guy from Kentucky. R.E. Thompson. That guy, R.E. Thompson, is a fascinating guy. He's like 138 years old, or maybe like 84. And he rode his motorcycle through the hill country. And he has a mission. He helps people. He's an amazing guy. I can't wait to meet you one of these days, R.E. Thompson. So, hey, John Harson. Hey, Jim. I don't know if you need to accept that Facebook request or not. That's on you guys. Yeah, if anyone else did, it would have been called a teeth brush. I got it. Hey, I did. I got it. All right, so I'm trying to think about other topics. You know, here's what I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about this. One of the things that when I gave my acceptance speech, I guess you call it, at the induction ceremony, I quizzed probably 15 people. And I said, you know what, I got to give a speech at this Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And I don't know what to talk about. I mean, I could talk about ponds all day long. But, you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to talk to a group of people that are a mixture of fisheries people, you know, my clients, my friends, my family. And when I asked 15 different people, you know, what, if you come to that event and you hear the speech and then you leave and you said, wow, that was worth it, what did I say? And it was pretty succinct. It was they wanted to be inspired, entertained, and they wanted to hear a few stories. So that's what I did. And as I thought about it, I thought, you know, how in the world can I inspire somebody? And I've got to sit here and tell you that the older I get, the more inspired I am. Bob, for president of what? Pond boss? Already in. Voted in. Voted myself in. So as I thought about it, I thought, you know, I'm 69 years old. Do I look 69? Maybe I do. I don't feel it. Because when you're on the inside looking out, you can ask Jim Allen this, because he's pretty close to the same. You don't feel like it. You know, you don't think like it. You think like, well, shit, I'm still 45. And then you start trying to, you know, play defensive end or something, and you realize you break your leg. You know, and so as I was thinking about it, how can I inspire somebody? And the older I get, the more, I guess the wisdom that comes to me is more dialed into understanding the laws of nature. The more I can understand the laws of nature and convey that to you, the better pondmeisters you become, the better stewards you become of your property. You can understand the value of the soil, understand the value of the water, can understand the value of what goes on below the water, you understand the value of what goes on above the water. And when you start to kind of wrap your brains around those things, then you start to see really what the truth is. So I'm trying not to talk in circles, but I figured out that I am divinely inspired, so I should share that with other folks. So as I learn the laws of nature, then here's what I mean by that. We have seasons. We have fall, winter, spring, summer. Well, here we are going into fall. The leaves on the trees are going to come off of the deciduous trees. Things are going to rest. The water's going to cool down. We're going to go through winter. Then when spring comes, fish are going to want to begin to reproduce because that's their life cycle. And as they reproduce, things eat them. Then the water provides food as the temperature goes up. You know, there's fertility, there's aquatic plants, there's insects. So all these things start to kind of come together to create that ecosystem that shifts gears as the seasons flow. So as I thought about it, how can I inspire somebody? So part of what I thought about was, you know, what I said to that group was, every one of us lives in a box. We do. And that box is tempted by complacency. And the more comfortable we are, the more complacent we are, the more satisfied we are with the box. But when we sit down and raise the lid on that box, we start thinking maybe we should do something about it. And an example of that in my world was in upstate New York back 20 frickin' years ago. I was challenged with trying to grow some bass to 8 pounds. They couldn't get bass bigger than about 6.5 pounds. So I started thinking, okay, what's the box? The box is the growing season is too short, or the food chain, there's not enough food, and the genetics weren't good enough. Well, I could pitch the genetics argument because Charles Inman, a fisheries biologist in Texas, had grown some northern strain bass beyond 10 pounds in Lake Merval over in East Texas. That happened in the late 60s, early 70s. I already knew about that. So since all those biologists and professors and fish hatchery people believed that the growing season was too short, wasn't enough food, genetics weren't good enough. That was the box. If you can identify your box, the box of your pond, the box of your life, the box of the way you think, if you can raise the lid of that box and identify it, then you begin to think of things that you can do to get outside of it. So I figured out that upstate New York had the same number of perfect bass growing days that we have in Texas. The difference it was there, they had 125 days in a row. In Texas, anywhere on the planet, a perfect bass growing day is 55, 58 degrees up to 83 degrees. Well, in Texas, we don't have perfect bass growing days in July and August. It's too damn hot. They're trying not to die, so they're not thriving. So I was able to eliminate the growing season, from the box. It had nothing to do with it. But in Texas, we have 300 perfect bluegill growing days. Upstate New York, they got 75. So I knew in upstate New York, we had to figure out how to supply more food to those bass, which is what we did. And 18 months later, we had 6.5 pound bass that had grown close to 8 pounds. So when you're in your box, you're not moving forward. So I wanted to inspire people with that. The second thing is you guys that watch this show, you know the things that I say. First, happy water. If the water's not happy, nothing else matters. If your water's happy, the next thing that's most important is habitat. As goes the habitat, so goes what lives in it. Danny Mack quoted that with me. He's sitting right here listening to it. He knows. Then the next piece is the food chain. It takes 10 pounds of bait fish for a game fish to gain a pound. It takes 10 pounds of insects and plankton and food for bait fish to gain a pound. So if you understand the food chain, you're closer to winning the game. The next piece is genetics. You don't want, Michael Eric doesn't need to put frickin' Florida bass in Iowa. They're not going to do very well. They're going to die. So you got to have the right genetics. Then you got to have a harvest plan. So as I tried to inspire people, the way I spun it around was, is your water happy? In your life, is your water happy? Do you have the right habitat? How are you fed? Are you living within your genetics? What do you harvest? That's the kind of stuff that makes me think about how to preach the gospel of pond management. And really a lot of that's about you and the way that you think. So there it is. So now you guys have thrown out a whole bunch of questions. And R.E. Thompson, he's a godly man. And he just, I see what he says here. He just soaked that in. I'm going to back up here. Jim Allen, I'm not running for president. I'm not old enough yet. I just tickled myself. Woodford. I need 8 more years before I'm qualified to run for president. All right, John Harson, my lake is about 60 degrees right now because of some cold nights. My fish have really slowed down on their feeding. So I now only feed one time at 1 p.m. and now run my aerator during daylight. Yeah, that's probably okay. I tell you what I would do, John, is I would watch the fish and see how well they feed. If they clean that feed up on one feeding at 1 p.m., of course I know you're poor, you don't have any money, you know, I got all that. But have somebody show up at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, see how long it takes the fish to eat all that feed. If they clean it up, bump it up a notch. Yeah, you know what? When the water temperature is 60 degrees, it's okay running your aeration system. Just run it. I'd run the aeration system at night. Switch it to nighttime. Let me think about that. Doesn't matter. If you want to run it during the daytime, run it during the daytime. That's fine. Jim Allen, our lake went from 70 to 59 degrees in a week. The fish have attacked the MVP of food again. What's the trigger temperature for fall is coming? 55 degrees. That's the temperature that's triggered. At 55 degrees, the bluegills slow down. At 46, they pretty well stop. So I got a feeling with these last few days and upcoming days of warmer temperatures, they'll probably bump up a little bit. Daddy Mac, I'm inspired by the golfer Miguel A. Jimenez. He's 10 years younger than me, but twice as ugly, and always has a babe hauling the bag. Well, it's good that he didn't have a bag hauling the babe. Attaboy, Thompson, I love you, buddy. Ben Kusterin. Let's see what we got here. I just scrolled past it. I hope you guys laughed at that little comment that Danny Mac set up for me. Always says a babe hauling the bag. It's better than having a bag hauling the babe, which might be him. Ben, the pond is low. 6 feet of water left. Should I be worried about wintertime kill? I live in Illinois. Is that enough water for wintertime? Okay, let's tackle that topic, Ben. You're not saying how low I tell you what, a typical pond, the top 3 feet is the same volume of water for the rest of the entire pond. So winter kill, if you have 6 feet of water, if the water's fertile and you have a heavy plankton bloom, or you have a lot of aquatic plants, then yeah. Jeez. Yeah, I would look at an aeration system, Ben. Even if it's just a do-it-yourself one that doesn't cost a lot. Jeremy Day, can you talk about frogs and turtles and their impact on ponds? I'm sure they are great. Would like to learn more. My daughter loves them. Well, here's the way I see frogs. Most of the time when you have an abundance of frogs, they're leopard frogs, which means you've had a lot of tadpoles. And when the leopard frogs emerge, when they absorb the tails, get their legs and all that, you see 4.2 gazillion of them for about 2 weeks. And then their numbers begin to drop because the coyotes eat them, raccoons eat them, they vacate the premises, they don't stay around. Frogs don't really have a giant impact on a fishery. If they did, you wouldn't have bullheads and fathead minnows and crappie. Turtles, what I tell people is if a turtle eats a fish, the fish deserved it. But I have seen, especially when we used to have Lusk Landing, 2, we would have 60 or 70 red ear slider turtles in our 3/4 acre swimming pond. No doubt in my mind that those things disrupted spawns. So I would let my grandkids teach them their Second Amendment rights. Yeah, John, I figured running it now, it would make the water colder, which you don't necessarily need to do. Yeah, go ahead and run it during the day. I think that's a better idea. Dell St. Julian, a brand new face in the mix here. Bluegill slow down at around 50. Do perch do the same? No. Perch won't slow down until about the mid 40s, early 40s. John Harson is just full of wisdom. Full of wisdom. I heard it's better to poop in the sink rather than sinking in the poop. Well, you need to talk to your wife about that, especially if you're the one doing the dishes. So, guys, we're running out of juice here. And trying to think of other kinds of wisdom that I can convey to you. I'm coming up short. So I've showed you this little deal here. Evidence. So, hey, guys, if you haven't subscribed to Pond Boss yet, do that. $35 a year. Go to pondboss.com. Click on the link that tells you how to do it. It's $35 cheap. Cheaper than a Friday night date. So, we've got, you guys are trying to keep me hanging around. I'm about ready to bail out on you, and here you come. Stephen Martin, the red ear in my pond will avoid eating the 15 or so small perch and eat the fish food the fish are trying to eat. Well, you know what? There's some red ear sunfish will train to fish food, but they don't like it that much. But they will. Jim Allen, I've noticed that most of the articles, recent research articles on largemouth bass are from China. They latched on to largemouth bass as a fast grower without intermuscular bones and offered 600,000 pounds in 2020. Have you noticed that impacted anything you do? No. I don't care about China. I have enough to do here. Those people would have to money whip me to get me to come to there. And I can't imagine harvesting 600,000 pounds of largemouth bass. Let me do the math on that here. Y'all bear with me a minute. I've got my phone. 600,000 pounds of bass. And I guess they think they're going to feed the masses. 600,000 divided by 50 pounds per acre. That's 12,000 acres worth of bass. Where if they took that 12,000 acres and they grew channel catfish, that's 12 million pounds of catfish. So, I don't know what to tell them. Will stripers hit floating feed? Ron says. Hybrid stripers will hit floating feed. Stripers will not. They're predators. But when you cross those two and you train them as puppies, they will learn how to eat fish food. Yep, and Kenny Sanderson says red ear will train, just takes patience. Most of the time, people that are training red ear sunfish to eat fish food, they've got them in a recirculating system. But if you'll feed them 4 or 5 times off the dock in a pond, and they'll mimic the bluegill, and they'll start coming up to eat. So guys, we're at 7:21. I'm kind of done, and I appreciate you guys watching this show. Can't wait to hang out with everybody at the Institute of Higher Pondology, and let's go. And then Mark Hicks chimes in. My idea until they got to 3 pounds, then they switched to live fish. Well, there you go. There's your striper story. So guys, always love hanging out with you, and I'm not sure where I'll be next Tuesday, probably at home. But I know this, I'll be hanging out with you. So John, call the office, 800-687-6075, 903-564-6144. If you're missing a September-October issue, I know it was mailed, and I bet you paid for your subscription. And Leanne will see to it that you get it. So, hey, there's Ron Chrisman, the smallmouth magnate. So, until next Tuesday night, I'll report in from Lusk Landing right here on the Brazos River, right out that door, and I'll fill you in on the Institute of Higher Pondology. So until then, adios.